regardless of the results of this league, I think we can all agree that Zurfolk absolutely crushes as a deck name. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another Legacy video, and today Skylar has challenged me to build around Zur's Weirding. This is indeed a weird card, as players are going to play with their hands revealed. But more importantly, if a player would draw a card, they reveal it instead. Then any other player may pay 2 life if a player does put that card into its owner's graveyard. Otherwise, that player draws that card. This is an extremely interesting card, but it's also kind of a 4 mana do nothing card immediately when it hits the board. And we're going to throw back to about a year ago when Skylar previously challenged Bosch and Roll to brew around this card. And Brian slotted it into an Enchantress deck, which I think makes a lot of sense. You get to go and play all sorts of things that are synergistic with enchantments, and your Zur's Weirding also gets to cantrip. And since every single enchantment you have probably draws you another card, you don't super care about your opponent spending some life to keep you from drawing. And when this went into my queue, Enchantress was what I thought I was going to do. Then the Fantasticar attacked, and everything changed. And now I think Enchantress was already a hard sell to play in Legacy. It's just a very, very slow deck. But if you kind of look at Enchantress here, like what of this is interacting with the Fantasticar? So this was just fully not something that I would be excited about playing. Tune in later this week where I try to shove an 8-drop into Enchantress. And so I'm going to try a very different approach to today's league. What I am going to do with this is use it as a way to time walk my opponent. So my theory here is that I already want my win condition on board by the time that I can cast this card. And then I want to pay 2 life once or twice to keep my opponent from drawing new cards and turn creature sideways and kill my opponent. I think the life management portion of this is more viable than the enchantment angle here. And I'm going to play a deck that I don't like to play because I think it is a decent place to try to slot this in. I'm going to play Merfolk. Going on the aggression aspect of things, there were 3 decks that I was thinking of slotting this into. The first was a mono blue Tempo deck. The second was some sort of blue-black Barrogoyf pile operating under the same theory. And the final one was Merfolk. And I conceptually like the idea of having a bunch of pitch counters in current Legacy. Format's fast. Format's very, very fast. So in the 75, I have 8 force effects as well as 4 consigned memories. That is a statement about where the current format is at. And my goal is to play out a whole bunch of lords, go, I am Lord, yeah. And then ultimately play something my opponent can't beat. The reason that I specifically went with Merfolk is I can just try to get some free wins, which I think matters a lot in current Legacy. Cavern of Souls shutting down all of my opponent's force effects. Free wins. Harbinger of the Seas making it so that my opponent can't cast any spells. Free wins. Inexplicable true name Nemesis that none of my opponent's removal spells answer. You guessed it, free wins. So 6 main deck counterspells plus a bunch of things that maybe just mize our opponent, and Zur's Weirding as a way to close the door and say, you don't get to draw towards your outs. Now, in the past year or so, a bunch of things that give you card advantage on board have really started to become popular in Legacy. Think about your Barrogoyf and Tamiyo style cards. So those sorts of things that either allow you to draw cards from permanents and would force you to keep paying this tax, or things like Flow State and Stock Up that don't technically draw cards are going to kind of dance around Zur's weirding in an awkward way. I've got a couple of pieces of spice scattered throughout here, such as Mistcaller. I wanted a few slots for Reanimator Show and Tell style decks, and this was something that overlapped with a whole bunch of their win conditions. This may be me getting a little lost in the sauce, but I don't know, it seems kind of cute. Skylar did also ask for a trans rights shout out, so absolutely. Always happy to do that. As a side note, Bryant Cook's D&T video from my fundraising incentives is now live, so check out the Epic Storm channel for some death and taxes content if you need a good laugh. Rumor has it the league was actually really cool. All right, folks, if you need any magic cards like your Zur's Weirding to show up to your local FNM and troll people, please consider getting them from my sponsor, TOAMagic.com. And when you do, use my promo code ThrabenU to save yourself a little bit on your order. With that being said, let's bottle. All right, one more thing before we get going. There's a new Merfolk from the Marvel set, something like Namor, that gives you Merfolk tokens when you would like Force of Will or Force of Negation. I don't particularly think that card is good within the context of Legacy. I would rather try to get free wins off of something like Harbinger of the Seas. And my opponent has taken my Force of Negation with Thoughtseize, so my protection is gone, which is spooky. Otherwise, opening hand is pretty darn good. Like, I have Vial, a bunch of Lords, a source of card advantage, and had a counterspell. Like, this was a very well-balanced hand. Oh shit, it's Reanimator. Spicy Reanimator at that. Uh-huh. Well, alright. Decent selection of follow-up cards. Nothing insane, but, like, this is a problem. I don't have too awful many ways to get that out of play. Yeah. Delta, Archon, Daze, Thoughtseize. That's what my opponent is working with over there. I think I need to just cast this for a redraw here. I'll reveal some Lord that they've already seen. This card really doesn't matter. Like, the body is borderline irrelevant. This is 2 mana, draw a card. And my opponent is considering dazing it. I think you don't daze because Sink into Stupor is my out for Atraxa, and you want to be able to daze that. That's something that I'm going to have to tap out for. And opponent does not counter it. This next Vial is not particularly good. I'm going to eat 7 from Atraxa, going to 13. I will get Thoughtseized again. I lost my flyer, and there's unfortunately more. My opponent is just going to pick up another body. It is perfectly reasonable. All right. Can I kill my opponent over 2 combats? Everyone's unblockable. I wonder. Cavern on Merfolk. I could deal 4 damage this turn and maybe spike another Lord. I don't know that I want to turn off my Cavern of Souls. I think I'm going to do this. Uncounterable Merfolk. Activate this. Lord of Atlantis into play. Oh, fuck. This is bigger now. So the old templating on these is other Merfolk. Well, so much for trying to protect my Cavern of Souls. Not Merfolk you control. So I'm going to take 11. I think this attacks too. Like, I've got Island Walk on everybody. My opponent goes to 15. I have 10 in play. I think I'm not getting there. Charta Course. Wild. Not seen a Charta Course in a long time. Alright. This one stays at 2 to put in a Lord. One goes to 1. Yeah, so I can whack my opponent for 10, but the Atraxa life gain puts them over the line. Alright, GG. Closer to turning the corner on that game than I would have expected. Alright, these Miscallers are going to come in. These Force of Negations are going to come in, and if something is bad, I can sub in True Name for it. The game is over before Zur's... Hold on. The game is over, determined, before Zur's Weirding comes down, I think. So then, what is the worst creature in my deck at this stage? Harbinger of the Seas legitimately would have taken my opponent off of black in that game. That said, is that something I'm trying to do? Like, by the time Harbinger of the Seas come down, my opponent has either done their thing already or fetched a basic swamp to play around it. It's devastating that a bunch of these lords are other merfolk. If I, like, because True Name Nemesis on my opponent's side is pretty annoying. I think that is something that I have recognized and I ignore as being a thing. I don't think just Tide Shaper is enough interaction here. I'm going to mulligan that. Yes, what is going back? It might be Vile. I don't know, the Tide Shaper is not great. Turn 1, sink into Stupor so that it can't be taken via discard, Aether Vial. Turn 2, this, draw a card, reveal True Name. I'm going to put the Tide Shaper back into the deck. I'll start the game at 17. Opponent has Underground Sea and passes. Tide Shaper could have taken my opponent off of mana. Oh, are you a second main phase hipster? You are a second main phase hipster. My opponent has things like Chart a Course that make that card better than normal. Feels incredibly awkward to counter that. I think I'm not going to, but it's weird. That may just be a wrong decision. Otawara. Cavern. On Merfolk. Will be uncounterable. I'll reveal True Name, and I'll cantrip off of this. Hexcatcher. Not bad. You may brainstorm. Then there's a Polluted Delta. Opponent's going to loot. Attracts at a yard. Then I have to fight over this and hope that I win the fight. Yeah. Opponent's Disruption gets through. Now my opponent has Atraxa with multiple counterspells. Thanks, I hate it. I needed one more turn to get this Hexcatcher in play to win this fight. Force of Will, Chart a Course, Wasteland. File goes up. I am straight up going to get taken off of using Otawara as a way to get Atraxa out of play. So I think I am just making this as a land drop, which is rough. So I will cast a Merfolk. I will Vial in a Merfolk. Send in for 4, and we're trying to race a 7/7 Vigilance Lifelinker. Opponent's at effectively 14. I have 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Another Lord doesn't get me there immediately. 7 seems good. Then opponent can draw 2 off Chart a Course. Do I have any reason to tick Vial up to 3? Not really. Alright, opponent is not going to Wasteland me. We'll leave this at 2. It is a Mist Caller. I guess I'll put into play now in case my opponent gets spicy and attempts to junk me in the middle of combat. This one does not have Island Walk. I don't even have the 9 damage that I thought I would have. I don't know what my opponent is waiting on now. It does not seem like this is a problem. It seems like they are trying to hit me twice with Atraxa. And I am dead to onboard stuff. Send in with my Island Walk creatures. And I don't get to sink into Stupor. Atraxa out of play if I rip it. Ugh. At the point where I'm losing that or losing a whole bunch of Merfolk to counter that, I think my opponent has cleanly got this one with the Force of Will still around. We did not put up results versus opposing combo here. GG. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I love them. I have over 1,000 deck lists here. And I think the thing that I like the most about them is they're more than just a basic deck builder. If you need information about your next pre-release or where you can get cards, they have that sort of stuff here too. Whether you need to manage your collection or just a couple of decks, Moxfield does it all. So go check them out. My opponent is mulliganing super aggressively here. I hope I don't get Force of Will checked, because I sure don't have it. I have the ability to turn a land into an island, and then all lands into islands. We'll see whether or not that's reasonable, or if my opponent just does something like an Echo immediately that puts me into a terrible overall position. Petrified Hamlet is my opponent's land, which presumably is going to name Wasteland, and then I will turn that into an island. It does name Wasteland. Do I actually turn that one into an island? I'm not sure that that matters right now. I think I actually just want to try to hit a land drop this turn to play Harbinger of the Seas and make everything into an island next turn. So let's do this. Reveal Lord of Atlantis, draw my card. Name Nemesis is not what I am looking for. I was looking for any land or a counter spell there. That's another Petrified Hamlet. Mutavault, or just name Wasteland again? Yeah, just name Wasteland again. All right. I have missed on my land drop to make everything into islands. I can turn one of these into islands. I don't think that matters. I think this is just Paunch. This is kind of an unimpressive draw here. My opponent is going to die, but they are probably going to die to the fact that they don't play Magic rather than my deck doing something insane. All right, that's just Cavern on Eldrazi. All right, now I get my own thing. Everybody Island, is that still the plan? Kind of feels like that's still the plan. That way, if my opponent has a soul land of some kind, they don't get the jump to 5. Oh? Dismember? Sure. I guess I could have attacked before playing that card. Opponent to 3. I think I'm good to just get over the finish line with aggro stuff here. But I think I should have attacked first. Then maybe this gets dismembered and I stick the Harbinger. Alright, GG's, 4x Consign to Memory in. Force of Negation comes out. I think my guess is that my opponent is an Eldrazi aggro deck, and that was an awkward draw. The cost of being wrong is pretty high. Does my opponent win the game if I play Zur's Weirding? Like, is their life total higher than my life total on average? We're both dismembering. Kind of want this. I think with the existence of Eldrazi Linebreaker, I can't play that card. And then I will turn the flyer into another true name that holds the ground a little bit better. Trample's weird, though. All right, we'll call this good. That is just a Wasteland as my only land. That is not going to do it for me. I will mulligan this. The second hand has 2 lands. It has Harbinger of the Seas. I guess it has 3 lands, Harbinger of the Seas. I'm going to keep this. I think I'm getting rid of this one. Eldrazi Temple, Lotus Petal. I have to like counter a Harbinger, or not a Harbinger of the Seas. Eldrazi line. Oh, Glaring Fleshraker. I probably just say no to that. That card really disrupts my plan of play Harbinger and make it very hard for my opponent to resolve spells. Tideshaper is something I will do next turn when I can turn it into an island, I think. Tapped land, pass turn. Oh, opponent's on 4 mana already. Oh, that's just 2 mana. That resolves. Are you just going to outright name Harbinger of the Seas? That would not surprise me. Oh, going for Wasteland. Reasonable. Cavern on Merfolk. Then I will cast this with Kicker. Turn one of those into an island. And then the hope next turn is that everything is islands, which will take my opponent more or less off of like red-colored mana or things like Eldrazi Linebreaker. Chalice on 1. Resolves. Okay, very nice. So I will go ahead and go to combat, swing in for 2, see if a Dismember is randomly used, which I wouldn't necessarily expect it to. Opponent to 18. Cavern on Merfolk. Throw down Harbinger of the Sea. And we'll see if the theory of trying to get free wins via Harbinger of the Seas plays out the way I want it to. Doesn't look like it. And now, because I tried to shut down my opponent's mana, the Silvergale Adept that is in my hand becomes a bit more awkward. This will be 5 mana to cast. Oh, whatever this is, I don't like it. Oh yeah, I do not like it. That'll clock me pretty hard, and it's pretty awkward to take that out of play. Okay, this helps a lot. So let's go bam, and bam. Reveal the Hexcatcher. Draw a card. It's an Aether Vial. Am I the beatdown? I might be the beatdown. Nobody's got Island Walk, though, to, like, crash through opposing blockers. My opponent has 0 cards. Alright. I'm the beatdown. In for 3. Opponent is at 9. I have 3 creatures on board and an Ancient Tomb on my opponent's side. Alright, they're going to keep attacking. Put me to 6. That's Harbinger of the Seas. Okay. So this is going to come down to what does my opponent top deck next turn. Fully. Opponent to 2. Here's Harbinger of the Seas. It's weird playing that because that makes Ancient Tomb into a mana source, but I suspect that my opponent can't get over the hump here if they don't have access to the haste of Reality Smasher. All right. 2-0 to that one. Turns out freebies off of Harbinger of the Seas absolutely matters. GG's. No, we drew the Zur's Weirding in a 1-land hand. That's unfortunate. Well, I will keep this. I will probably put back 1 Sink into Stupor here. And it looks like we're playing good, honest, fair Merfolk. Which might not be strong enough. Basic Island, Tamiyo. Maybe I should just play Tamiyo in my deck. Fuck, Tamiyo's actually a... Oh, no, Moonfolk, not Merfolk. Sorry. I had just a moment of like, did I misremember what card type this was? Harbinger versus Basic Island. Stonks. I do think I cast this card still. I will, I guess, show my opponent that True Name is coming. Take my card to draw and pass turn. I don't think I want to show Harbinger in case my opponent is a blue-black deck and they like don't fetch basic swamp or whatever. Fuck. Alright, Tamiyo gets to transform. Tamiyo pluses. Opponent has Mystic Sanctuary. Effectively an island. We probably make that card better by playing Harbinger. Alright, do I cast anything this turn? If so, what? I don't really want these creatures to get countered. I might just Sink into Stupor this Tamiyo, because I can't attack and kill it anyway. And like, if this gets countered, I don't super care, because everything else gets played via Vial. Yeah, that's fine. So then do this. Say yes, Master. Oh no, my Island Walk creature! It can still not be blocked because this is an island. But opponent did take 1 island out of play. Inat Tamiyo for 2, meaning that Tamiyo can't minus immediately. I wonder if opponent is mono blue, or if we have just seen the blue side of their deck only. Oh, opponent just doesn't have mana. Alright, got a free one. GG. I don't think I'm boarding out Zur's Weirding this time. My opponent is straight up a regular cantrip deck here, where Zur's Weirding does a little bit more than normal. I don't know where I stand on Dismember yet, having seen so few cards. I'm 100% interested in another True Name, though. I think I'm going to board out Force of Negations, play a True Name, and round out the deck with, like, a Dismember. Like, we know that at minimum, it has Tamiyo as targets. If my opponent is doing threats like Murktide Regents, I have, like, Sink into Stupors and Ottawaras that can take that out of play, and it's a little hard to do another thing with it. This opening hand looks fine. Uncounterable turn 3 True Name Nemesis, kind of cool. Flooded Strand, sure. Let's play a Vial. I don't think I will fight over, like, a Daze or Spell Pierce or Consign or whatever. Yeah, that's fine. I care way, way more about something like a Tamiyo. And I think I want to be able to force that card specifically. You may ponder. Silvergill? Sure. Cavern on Merfolk. I'll reveal the Tide Shaper that's not super strong. Alright. That is a Harbinger that could shut off my opponent's white mana, which is cool. I really just want to Wasteland and fully take them off of that land. Let's do that. I have another land drop to play these things anyway. That is a Felia. I don't want that getting active. I think I'm going to force pitch Tide Shaper here and hold another force effect for another turn down the line. Opponent to 17. I don't know if Wastelanding was correct. It's like really awkward if my opponent... Ooh, that's quite strong. Anyway, plays a basic Plains the following turn. In we go for another 2. Opponent to 15, and I can still True Name with Force of Will backup. You may Brainstorm. That is a basic island and Tamiyo. I don't love that card. My opponent would fight over that, but if they have Daze specifically, that doesn't fight over... that can't fight over Force, but could fight over True Name, I think I just let that resolve and try to force True Name through. A little weird because then this isn't clocking, but I think I'm going to let that happen. I'm also going to try to get 2 free points of damage by attacking in with this Silvergill Adept. There are Flash Lords now that I am representing via this attack, so this is not a free block. Opponent does not play around it. Oh yeah, you figured it out. Opponent to 13. Play Otawara. Here is True Name Nemesis. Alright, nice. Protection from you. So now my opponent can have a Tameo, but I have a True Name that is a major pain in the butt. Swords is fine. You may investigate. I can't block. You crack your clue. That's only your second draw, so that's not actually all that bad for me. Sink into Stupor is fine. Harbinger? Harbinger around days, I think. 1, 2, and 3. Alright, we are resolved. I am in for 3 with a Force of Will that protects from days. Alright, nice. We absolutely did the Merfolk thing there. Actually, thinking about Zur's weirding for a second, in the Tameo matchups where my opponent is creating a bunch of clues, that's kind of interesting. Like, if they are not pressuring my life total as well. We are currently positive with Merfolk. Hopefully we get Zur's weirding into play once or twice in the league. GG. I'm going to need a little bit more mana here, but my opening hand is reasonable. It's another Underground Sea deck of some kind, and opponent ponders. And a shuffle, which I'm hoping is a good sign for me. I think in respective days, I'm going to take 3 damage here to play this untapped. If this is a combo deck, I would like to not get dazed when I'm not using my mana for anything else. It's an awkward play if my opponent is just a tempo deck, but I am just kind of by the numbers guessing that they are going to be some Fantasticar or Doomsday style deck. Not fighting over that, fighting over the thing that comes next. Yeah. Probably Force of Negation, pitch a Silvergill. Yeah? Oh, cool, it just worked. Isn't that nice? Ooh, those are just both islands next turn. I think those are both islands next turn. Cavern on Merfolk, and I have a Flash Merfolk that I can use this turn. 3rd Underground Sea. The Fantasticar. Force of Will. Pitch Silvergill Adept. Very nice. Now I will do my uncounterable Merfolk into Harbinger of the Seas, and if my opponent is playing Doomsday, that card got a lot harder to cast. In for 1 point of damage. That is the Fantasticar, which I guess I am going to counter. I think I sacrifice the Hexcatcher itself. Get out of there. So we have stopped my opponent 3 turns in a row. 1 ring, car. This is now counterable, although I don't know that that matters. In for 3. If opponent can keep doing stuff from here, like, so be it. Cool. Honestly, kind of needed that break. Master of the Pearl Trident, you're pulling the strings. Metallica known Merfolk enjoyers. Alright, cool. So is my opponent Doomsday? Actually, does it matter? Because I'm probably just playing like Force of Negation and Consign regardless. Zur's weirding, kind of weird versus the One Ring. Oh, there's also Hercules. Boy, that's a lot of cards. Let's assume that this can go. If my opponent is Doomsday, things like Tideshaper and Harbinger of the Seas matter for the black of Doomsday. This is certainly expendable. Where are we at with Zur's weirding? Let's do a pile of cards that I can't cut. I think everything in this 18 pile just simply cannot be cut. I believe it is correct to not play Zur's weirding. I'm going to play Zur's weirding. We gotta try to do the thing a couple times in the league. Legacy is just so fast right now. It's such a hard ass to play a 4-mana enchantment. Yeah, this is a very good looking hand. Underground Sea, Dark Ritual. Fantasticar, no. Force of Negation, pitch Tideshaper. Alright, we stop the opponent for now. And now there's this game of, like, Zur's weirding has arrived right on time. Now there's this game of, like, do I want to put Consign? Like, do I want to hold up Consign, or do I just want to Wasteland my opponent? Wasteland is better versus Doomsday. Consign is very good versus One Ring and Car. I think I'm going to hold up Consign, as to not have to use Force of Will immediately. Ponder is fine. Underground Sea comes down. I think I let that Lotus Petal resolve. Uh-huh. Opponent now gets to see what's going on with my nonsense. Zur's Weirding, very funny versus Doomsday. Very, very funny versus Doomsday. Hold on, I didn't think about that. You have a pile of 5 cards, I pay 10 life, you get none of your cards. GG. Holy shit, that's hilarious. Opponent has taken my Consign. Sure. I don't think I wasteland my opponent now. I have like Hexcatcher and Force of Will. Yeah. Merfolk. Also, non-ironically, I am working towards casting Zur's Weirding now. I don't know that I get to get there. I really don't want my opponent to do that. I don't think I counter it. It's very awkward if my opponent hits banger, banger, but I don't care if they hit, like, banger plus a random land. Merfolk into play. Sink into Stupor is awkward. I guess it's a blue thing that pitches to Force of Will, potentially, so that I can maybe cast Zur's Weirding. Yeah. Not Wastelanding here is weird. My opponent is a 1-ring deck. And a Fantasticar deck. Yes. That is the 1-ring. I think I have to counter. Pitch Sink into Stupor. Attempt to live the Zur's Weirding dream. Opponent notably used Dark Ritual because of Odalian Hexcatcher. Like, the tax there is relevant on just 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, please draw a land so that I can cast this card. I'm upset. Alright, in we go. Opponent to 16. Now these are both bad. I don't think I can let my opponent potentially just hardcast a 1-ring next turn. Just go land 1 ring. I think I need to make this tax more relevant. Ooh, that's not bad versus the Fantasticar. I'm too light on resources right now, though. I don't have Brainstorm to save my ass. No end of turn Surveil land or anything there. Opponent just fetches on their main phase. There's land drop. Opponent to 13. Honestly, we really wanted it to be the Fantasticar, not that I was better versus the Fantasticar. So that's resolving. I maybe just Hercules it here so that my opponent doesn't draw any cards and has to re-expend mana on it. Oh fuck, they have protection from everything. That's so inconvenient for this extremely niche interaction. Alright. Well, now we're on the beatdown plan. I didn't need to attack there. That's protection from everything. That is just strictly a mistake. The hope is that they cannot do the Fantasticar thing this turn. Delta. They need all 4 cards to be non-creature spells for Fantasticar purposes. That happens. And opponent is passing. Well, kinda locked into what I'm doing here. I could hold up Hercules Recall. Yeah. Just gonna get out-tempoed here. Opponent brainstorms as well. I suspect that, like, trying to make Zur's Weirding work and not pitching it to Force of Will and potentially not wastelanding lost me this game. Let's see if I am dead here for not holding up Hercules. Although, honestly, my opponent might just have enough interaction at this point between, like, Thoughtseizes and counterspells that they just win. Yeah. That would have taken Hercules if I held it up. So, am I now dead to Car? That's Car. 2 spells, 3 spells, 4 spells. I think I'm going to be literal 1 point of damage away from winning this game. I think I'm going to take 16. My opponent is going to take 3, and then 3 from their 1 ring. So opponent needed both that Fatal Push and that Brazen Borrower to not be dead. 16. Down to 3. I think that Stupor doesn't do me any good. So I redeploy this. Send in for 3. Just inches away there. GG's, you've got it. I'm gonna give you another chance. I think it's wrong too, but we gotta try to do the thing. Oh wow, what an incredibly awkward hand. This is multiple caverns that don't cast Consign, but the hand is otherwise relatively strong. I think I'm gonna keep that, and sometimes we just end up pitching Consign to Force of Negation. Cavern on Merfolk past turn. I potentially wasteland my opponent in the first turn cycle, or just attempt to get another card that casts Consign. Alright, I am not wastelanding blah blah blah. I am not wastelanding my opponent in the first turn cycle since they've got the basic. I don't remember if I said this out loud, but I think my opponent is a dedicated Fantasticar deck, not a hybrid Doomsday deck now, based on what I saw in that last game. More Cavern on Merfolk. Let's reveal the Silver Gill. Drawing another Lord. There's a niche thing that I could have done in my turn cycle. I could have played Wasteland so that if I draw Island, I can do something like cast Silvergill Adept uncounterably while Wastelanding as well. But showing my opponent that I have the Wasteland when I know they have basics in their deck is a little awkward. So for example, if this Misty fetches Underground Sea, then I get to Wasteland it, whereas I wouldn't otherwise. That is a Tamiyo. That does not eat Force of Negation. Harbinger is interesting. I don't think I want to do that with double Cavern in play. It's weird, though, because this turns on Consign. I think I'm just going to go ahead and Wasteland and Cantrip again. I'll reveal a Lord. Oh, I forgot to do my Vodalian Hexcatcher check. That's on me. I missed 2 points of damage there. Whoops. Polluted Delta does come down. Opponent fetches. It is the basic swamp. Dark Ritual resolves. That's the Fantasticar. I need to counter that. I probably pitch Harbinger of the Seas now that I have this Consign. Yeah. Ah, shit. I'm probably dead. That's the next spell. Oh, that's the 4th because of Force of Will. Yeah. No, I'm going to take 16 here, and I can't kill before Tamiyo happens. I have to draw exactly Hurkyl's Recall. Believe I'm at 4. That is not exactly Hurkyl's Recall. I am dead to Fantasticar nonsense, unfortunately. GG, we're now 2-2. Alright, opening hand here is fine. It's a little slow. Are you a second main phase hipster? You are a second main phase hipster. Another Polluted Delta deck. Underground Sea and Thoughtseize. Opponent gets to take, presumably, Force of Will, and then I have a very slow game. Oh no, they took True Name. Cool. I will absolutely begin this game with a pair of Wastelands if I can. I have so much mana. Flooded Strand. If my opponent wants Underground Sea, that's another non-basic. So I guess that's positive for us. You may ponder. I don't want to keep drawing lands. Such is life. The hope is that my opponent runs out of lands, or at least does not have enough land to do, like, Fantasticar type crimes. Thank you, deck. Very cool. Opponent to 15. And we've got a Surveil. Dark Ritual happens. My opponent knows that I have Force of Will. I do just have to Force of Will that. But if they have more counter magic here, they've gotten no counterplay to this. Alright, taking a quick look at this. Opponent is a Doomsday Fantasticar hybrid deck with flow states, no main deck creatures. This is one of the worst cards in my deck. I don't have a Merfolk to do its thing. Cavern on Merfolk and pass turn. And opponent presumably wins the game this turn. This is going to be a Lion's Eye Die cycling pile, where my opponent plays a Street Wraith or an Edge of Autumn and then cracks LED. We'll probably see Consider as the next spell to empty my opponent's library. And then my opponent has 2 for Thassa's Oracle. And they have no cards to defend this, so like a piece of interaction here would have been clutch. I don't have it though. GG. I get Consign, which covers the Fantasticar and Thassa's Oracle, which is great. And I can be thinking about some amount of this stuff. I think I'm going to fully board out Vial. I believe that it is correct to board out Zur's Weirding, but playing that after a Doomsday is so funny that I simply cannot board it out. We'll board out a couple of top-end threats, I suppose. I can kill my opponent with whatever, assuming I make it out of my opponent's combo potential. No. That does not cast any of my spells. And as we saw last game, Wastelanding my opponent simply was not good enough. This is fine, although I don't have blue-blue for my Master of the Pearl Tridents, which is incredibly awkward. I think I keep it, pitch a master, and I will have some very strange Tide Shaper lines where sometimes I Tide Shaper myself to turn Wasteland into an island. I don't think that's going to happen, but like, it's on the table. Polluted Delta, and opponent is just going to pass the turn, which makes playing out Tide Shaper much more awkward. I would love to Wasteland my opponent conceptually. I don't know that that gets to happen. Do I just need to turn this into island so that I can continue to play Magic? I think so. There's kicked Tide Shaper. Wasteland is island. So awkward. Opponent fetches, gets basic island, has basic swamp in hand as well. Thoughtseize resolves. Opponent has taken my threat, which I guess means that I now don't have the decision between do I tap out for more damage or do I hold open interaction for Fantasticar. Does make my Wasteland play significantly more awkward. Alright, well, sad Merfolk beatdown. You may brainstorm. I don't get to fight over cards that look like that. Things like Flow State are going to be a little trickier to evaluate. There's a Cavern of Souls. What is this? Oh, long goodbye. Sure. Oddly, that turns my Wasteland back on. Unsure if that's good or bad for me. Silvergale Adept continuing to be a scumbag. No Merfolk around. I don't know that I get to Wasteland my opponent here. Cavern doesn't contribute to casting Doomsday. It does contribute to casting Car, but I'm pretty well protected versus Car. Thoughtseize resolves. I lose the most generic Force of Will there. Lotus Petal? My opponent has a Murktide Pivot. Force of Negation dodges that. Unfortunate. Alright, that's quite bad for me. That is a 7/7 that kills me in 3 turns. Brew my 3 pieces of interaction against my opponent's combo. Cavern on Merfolk. This is so devastating. I don't think I am supposed to Force of Negation a Lotus Petal. That is such a value spew if it is bait. Yep. My next draw is my last draw. And these aren't blue lands for the purposes of Sink into Stupor. So I think I have to draw exactly Otawara, which is a 1 in 49 chance. I am at 6. That is a Fantasticar, which I need to counter, or it will just kill me if I happen to answer Murktide Regent. I think I'm going to Force of Negation it, rather than just bounce it back to my opponent's hand, where it could be a problem later if my opponent is able to force it through somehow. Bobble's fine. Opponent will get to see whether my top card is Otawara before I do. Alright. That is another land. I can play a 5-mana Silvergale Adept, but that's not an out. It wasn't even the next card. We are dead to that, meaning that I only put up 2 wins this league. GG's. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Honestly, not terrible. On the Merfolk side, if I played this again, I think I would just find literally anything else to do other than Silvergale Adept. That card rotted in my hand in a few of these games because in post-sideboard configurations, I really need like 8 force effects and consigns versus these Fantasticar decks to stand a chance. In the post-sideboard games, this is very, very hard to make work consistently, despite around 28 creatures being in the deck game 1. I'm often boarding out a handful of those, especially if I'm trying to keep the Zurs weirding. The pace of play of this league indicates how hard it is to do anything a little bit cute right now in Legacy. I think the gameplay is still pretty interesting, but like the format is going to be warped around the Fantasticar until August. This was a deck that I built with the Fantasticar in mind, like 4 Force of Will, 4 Force of Negation, 4 Consign, 2 Hurkyl's Recall, and we were still struggling versus that deck, despite all of those tools. I suspect that this league still went much better than an Enchantress league would have gone. We played reasonable Magic every round, and like Harbinger and to a lesser extent Tide Shaper were absolutely relevant at punching a hole in opposing mana bases. If you are Doomsday Fantasticar specifically, black, black, black is pretty much impossible to get without Dark Ritual if you have Harbinger of the Seas in play. And it might require Lotus Petal into Dark Ritual into Doomsday as 3 cards that you have to have in order to cast that. Unless you already have basic Swamp when Harbinger comes down. I think the theory of the deck building was sound. If you are trying to do Zur's weirding stuff, I think I like trying to be an aggressive blue or blue-black deck with counterspells. Maybe I should have just gone Dimir and just caved and played 4 Tamiyo, 4 Barrow-goyfs, and like use that as my way to get up to this. Or maybe I should just take Silvergill Adept out of this deck and play 4 Tamiyos because you just need a source of card advantage. You can't 2-for-1 yourself versus the Fantasticar decks forever, or they eventually just refuel via Flow State, or Tamiyo, or whatever, or the One Ring as we saw. So I would say this was a good way to spend 2 hours or whatever recording. This was a reasonable looking deck. I think there is room for improvement. Merfolk is a deck that you can't even find results with on something like MTG Top 8. It's just not played at all in the format right now. Maybe Zur's Weirding is something you can make work in a different format, like pre-modern or something like that, where things are a bit slower. But given how fast Legacy is going to be for the next couple of weeks, I think it's a tough sell trying to play Zur's Weirding. That said, I did use, I think, everything in the sideboard here. I feel like I put together a good set of tools. And in that regard, I give this a thumbs up. This is good for what it was asked to do. It can be improved slightly still, I think. All right, with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day here, folks. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a like or comment on the way out. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. If you have anything cool you want to see on the channel in the next month, especially like faster decks, maybe weird broken combo decks, consider doing a donation deck list to support my content. All right, I'm going to get some food, hit the gym, and then get back to recording videos for you all. See ya!